A lot of times what you don't realize if you're a person who is an extrovert or even someone who's just well perceived and really accepted by the group, you don't notice how awkward it can be to try to be different. I would rather spend time alone than with anyone. I don't care if you're some super famous celebrity, super rich person, whatever the case is. There's something really important, and it's about this whole idea of being shy versus being an introvert. These two are often treated as though they are synonymous concepts, and they really are not the same thing at all. People just like to throw labels onto people because I guess that's what we do. It really can be very impactful to people who otherwise might be living a different kind of life if they were able to have the narrative around them be portrayed in a different way. What is all this about? If you're like me, grew up being told that you were shy. And maybe some of that was actually true because your personality was from a very young age, one that would retreat into the shadows whenever there was any opportunity to stand out in any way. Now, why that is might be something that you have to figure out on a deeper level and really wrestle with and really work to determine what is it that makes me not want to be seen? What is it that makes me not want to be noticed, be recognized? Why do I feel as though I'd rather just blend into the wall than actually be perceived by people? There might be things inside of you that you dislike. You naturally revert to being in the shadows and kind of being that background character. So you're shy. And when it comes time to do things like speaking up for something, standing up for a cause, you might believe in something, you might want to have an impact on a certain person, a certain thing that you want to do something about, but you're shy. You don't want to ruffle anyone's feathers. You don't even want to speak at all. You don't speak up. You don't express yourself. You keep things internal. You are labeled as shy accordingly. And then there's people who are introvert. This whole introvert extrovert debate is something else. As someone who has been labeled an introvert, and not just an introvert, but a shy introvert at that, what I can say is my brain, my way of being just does not relate to this concept of somehow getting more energy by being around a lot of people, which is what I've often been told extroverts enjoy. And that's what extroverts are. Their very nature is this group of people who enjoy being around other people. Because I, as an introvert, can even enjoy being around people. And that's one thing that I've only learned recently by doing my own research. Because a lot of people told me that if you do not get energized from being around people, then you dislike people. You're like a misanthrope. I think that's the term, a cynical misanthrope or something like that, because you don't get energy from being around people. You might enjoy it, but you don't get energy from it. You don't feel re-energized after being around people. This whole distinction between being re-energized versus simply enjoying being around people is one that I just learned recently. Even though someone is an introvert, that doesn't mean they can't enjoy being around people. That doesn't mean they can't enjoy human interaction. As someone who's learning this recently, I actually feel even more connected to this term of what it means to be an introvert. And I don't think that there's anything morally wrong with being an introvert or even morally wrong with being shy. But I've been labeled as these things from a young age. The amount of stigma that comes with that is really tangible because when it comes time to grow up and get older, you might want to revamp yourself because a lot of people, as they come to the end of high school, it's like, okay, I've lived my life to a certain point as this person, but who am I actually? And who do I want to be in the future? How do I want to be perceived? How do I want to live my life? Do I want to continue to be someone who just sits in the shadows? Or not. After high school, I had a chance to be a new person. And that's something that I didn't have up to that point. Every year of school up until that point was just being around the same people who saw me as the same person. And that's fair. I can't really blame anyone. That just was what it was. But I began to feel almost like this innate sense of wanting to make my own mark on the world. I think this started around middle school, but really became larger as I navigated toward the end of high school, where I was seeing that there's people who are really being very impactful on those around them, whether for good or bad. These people are being noticed. Their messages are being taken in. Whether it's for good or bad doesn't really matter. It's just the fact that these people are putting themselves out there to be perceived by people and they're having an impact. They're those people who, when you interact with them, you feel something after that interaction. I feel like I interacted with that person and they've kind of left their mark on me in a way. I knew that that's the kind of person I wanted to be. But because I was in my own box of who I was and who I had been up to that point, I felt like I couldn't really change until afterward. I feel as though if I were to have done something like that, in high school before, it would have been like, wait, who is this person? Because a lot of times what you don't realize, if you're a person who is an extrovert or even someone who's just well perceived and really accepted by the group, you don't notice how awkward it can be to try to be different. I can recall constantly being asked and teased about, oh, where's your friends? You don't have any friends? In various settings in school growing up, or even not in school, but with whoever I was around at the time in those limited opportunities to be in different settings. And it's kind of awkward in those cases. I don't know how to describe it in a very articulate way, but it's essentially that idea that as a child, you have such a limited perception and worldview that you feel so pressured to fit into that idea of who you were known to be, that if you step out of it, you're going to get teased for it. And that's what happened. The more that I would try to step out, the more I would have that happen. So I'd just be like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to be who you say I am, who you expect me to be. But eventually it got to the point where I was like, no, I don't want to be this person anymore. And it's not that I suddenly felt like I wasn't an introvert anymore or that I wasn't a shy person anymore. I think I got to the point where I realized that in order for me to get these thoughts in my mind out, I'm going to have to do something different. A lot of people who are doing things whimsically and with less forethought and intention are the ones who have impact, even if it's not necessarily something so profound that they're doing. That holds true even going into adulthood. It's like these people who sit on the sidelines, these people who don't speak up, they are not the ones who are going to be noticed. It gets to a point where it's like what are we doing? If you're not going to maximize yourself in terms of the impact that you can have on someone else, you might as well just be dead, honestly. Think of all the dead people in the past. They've done what they've done, but like right now they're dead. They have no impact on you right now. You might remember them for a few seconds. If there's someone who was super impactful, George Washington or something like that. But at the end of the day, do you really think about them like that? No. So who are you thinking about? Who are these people that you notice? The people that are changing your life, whether for better or for worse. As someone who wants to have an impact on people, I got to a point where it's like, if I'm not going to put myself in a position to do that with whatever resources I have, then I'm not actually living my life to the fullest. And it's not about being known or being popular, care less about that. It's about connecting with and having an impact on people who can relate to the kind of life that I had and the kind of feelings and emotions that I otherwise wouldn't be sharing with other people, because it was something that I felt wasn't my place. Introverts are people who enjoy being alone. Doesn't mean they don't enjoy being around people. And I do enjoy being around people. That's something that I've been battling with, is being labeled as a person who doesn't like other humans. Now, to be clear, I would rather spend time alone than with anyone. I don't care if you're some super famous celebrity, super rich person, whatever the case is, I tend to lean more toward spending time alone. That's just part of my nature. I'm sure many of you introverts can also relate to that, but it doesn't mean I hate other human beings. I think that's a really important distinction to make, because that's not what an introvert is at its core. But a lot of so-called extroverts will use that to look down upon introverts for us. Oh, you don't like people? What do you mean you don't like people? But I think that going from being shy to being someone who can speak up, that is another thing in and of itself. It's not something that's directly correlated to being an introvert. Many people are shy in various settings. You might be so comfortable to be loud and boisterous around your friends or a group of people you've known for a long time. But then put yourself in a group of people who have nothing to do with you in terms of hobbies, interests. Like imagine you're someone who works in a corporate office and then you're put into a room of breakdancers and you're thrown into the center of the dance circle and you're told to start dancing. And you have no coordination and you have no sense of really any athleticism because you're struggling with moving your body in any way at all, whether that's due to being overweight or whatever the thing is. How are you going to handle that? Because people are going to look at things. They're always going to try to find who's different and why are they different. And we're going to pick on people who are different. So in one setting, you're someone who's super comfortable, super bold and confident and loud and whatever. Well, introverts can be that too, just with people that they feel comfortable around. It's not something that introverts cannot experience. However, what's super different to me is this whole concept of introverts being people who are also shy, and that's just not the same thing. It gets to a point where if you are so shy that you're unwilling to even post your face online, I know a lot of people have privacy concerns, but if you think about it, your data is already out there. If someone really wants to do something, they can do it. We're seeing things change with YouTube's policies, like the recent thing about faceless channels and what's going to happen with those. In order to really have an impact, you do have to put yourself into a position to have an impact. And if you're so shy that you're not even willing to share your face online and all you want to do is hide behind a keyboard and do generic things, I don't know, I just feel like get to a point where I just can't relate to that way of being. I almost feel as though now's the time where introverts can begin to do more. Introvert versus shy, they're two different things. You might be one and you might be the other. It's just how you are, it's just how you're built.